Hey, how's it going, folks? Well, we will talk about the releases today with WWE. Let's just wait for a few people to come in the live stream and we can talk about what happened today, all the people who were released, as well as what this means for the future as far as the talent do go. What's up, Russell Jake? How you doing? What's up, Eddie Beveridge, Lucci Club Studios? Lot to talk about. 1 year from the actual Black Wednesday. Today is now Black Thursday. What's going on, Jose Martinez? How you doing? What's up, Mad Action? What's up, Impactful? Nicola, Jerican. We can talk about everybody who was released today. And when's the last time we seen these folks, too? It's interesting because I guess the biggest name on that list, at least for me, has to be Samoa Joe. Let's go over the list of talent first, and we'll see exactly what can happen in the future for them. The list of talent as of 5 p.m. is Samoa Joe, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Tucker, Kalisto, Bo Dallas, Wesley Blake, and those are who we do know. And who's going to go where? I guess that's the big question now. Samoa Joe, we do know he hasn't been cleared to wrestle, and we haven't seen him in a match for quite some time. His last appearance was during WrestleMania 37. He did do commentary, and the last scene we saw of him was that dreaded poncho scene. And Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, when they broke up the Iconics, I felt like that was the worst thing they can do for that pair. Nothing happened with both of them. Billie Kay, I guess, got a bit of a, I wouldn't even call it a push. She was on television for a while, but nothing really happened with her. She had that whole resume thing where she was going week to week, giving her resume, trying to be involved. She was working WrestleMania 37. Peyton Royce, on the other hand, she did work Raw on the 22nd of March. Mickie James, she is a WWE Hall of Famer in my eyes. They did use her for WWE Main Event. She was one of the hosts for that program, which does run on syndication. And she was on the NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver pre-show. Let's talk about Chelsea Green. Obviously, it was a rough start for her with her getting injured when she did come to the main roster. And then she hasn't been seen since the 13th of November. And she was backstage at a number of SmackDown events, but hasn't been used. And now she's gone. And then Kalisto did make an appearance on the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. They haven't been really using Kalisto that well. Wesley Blake, unfortunately, last appeared on the 11th of December episode of SmackDown. The big thing with Wesley Blake was he did have that storyline that was going to start with King Corbin and Steve Cutler. They did have him as his lackeys, but he was on television, and then Steve Cutler got fired after that incident, that party thing, and now Wesley Blake is gone. And then Bo Dallas, a lot of people wanted to see Bo Dallas get intertwined somehow with the Fiend's storyline or just appear back on television. He's been not working since Crown Jewel. So the 31st of October 2019, he hasn't been on television. So he was at WrestleMania. I just received a report from Fightful Select that he was actually participated in a test match for a couple minutes while WWE tested up their setup on Friday WrestleMania week. So he was there and he was used for a test match. Obviously, that's something that never made it to air or anything like that. As far as any other releases, checking with WWE, as of right now, they haven't listed anybody else It's Samoa Joe, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Tucker, Kalisto, Bo Dallas, and Wesley Blake. Tucker, another situation there where he was a victim of circumstance. So he had that pairing with Otis, Heavy Machinery. They got split up. Otis went one way. Otis did okay on his own. You know, like he won that Money in the Bank briefcase. Like he had a push. Tucker really hasn't been seen. So it is. He was, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, but he wasn't seen. As far as anybody else being released, no other names. As far as other talent not being used or people who should be released, you can't really speculate on that. There's clearly a number of people backstage who aren't being used. One being Aleister Black. We did put up a report not too long ago that Aleister Black, they did film some vignettes for him. So he is returning to television soon, according to PW Insider. The promos were loosely based around his childhood, so we don't know when that's airing, but as of right now, Aleister Black is safe, and they are going to bring him back to television. So that's one person that a lot of people thought would be released that wasn't. As far as what happened, Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful did state that John Laurinaitis was the one who made the calls, and he cited budget cuts as the reason that WWE did make these releases. So clearly that's not the case, as WWE does have a ton of money. Budget cuts, I don't know if this is going to be a yearly thing now where it's, the 15th, everybody's just waiting by their phone back, with WWE, seeing if they're going to be released, whether or not they're going to release some NXT talent. Last year, they didn't really publicize the NXT talent who were let go. I'm curious to see whether or not they will have some releases on the NXT side of things. Let's get into some of these chats here. I could see Samoa Joe, Chelsea Green, and Mickie James in AEW. I'd love to see Samoa Joe in AEW. I believe that Samoa Joe could be the AEW champion by the end of the year if he does enter AEW. Chelsea Green, I'd love to see her return to Impact. The Laurel Van Ness character was great. The Hot Mess character, I think that would be great for her. Mickie James, somebody who clearly can still work. I believe she is a future WWE Hall of Famer. I would love to see her in Impact Wrestling. Laurel Van Ness, Chelsea Green makes sense to go back to Impact since her husband Matt Cardona is there. I think that her and Deonna Purrazzo can do the tag team that they wanted to do in WWE. I think that would work great in Impact Wrestling since they do have that Impact tag team division there. Even though Deonna Purrazzo is a headlining act in Impact, it still would be good for her and Chelsea Green to, eventually have those tag team championships. The Iconics will go to AEW. The Iconics, those two very talented. Wherever they do go, I think that they will do well. As far as when we will see people being able to leave, I do believe there is a 90-day non-compete clause, so that'll be mid-June. We will start to see people popping up different places, whether that be AEW or the NWA or Ring of Honor or Impact, whether we see some more surprises at this year's Slammiversary pay-per-view. That remains to be seen. They did do, those surprises last year. Let's see what else is here. Can I get a shout out? The People's Wrestling Channel. What's good? What's good, man? Also, Samoa Joe and Impact makes sense as well, since Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, Chris Harris, James Storm, Rhino, Taylor Wilde, ODB, Eric Young, P.D. Williams, and Hernandez are in Impact right now. WWE has too much dead weight eating up all the catering. Is Paige next? The only mid-card comedy I enjoy is R-Truth. The rest is horrendous. You know what? R-Truth is one of those guys who, whatever he does, he's still, I still pop for him when I see him, even though some of his stuff is very cheesy. Those firings are iconic. Why didn't they send the Iconics back to NXT? I hope some of them return to Impact. I would love to see Samoa Joe take the route that John Moxley took, where that, maybe going to Japan when things are, opening up, working on the independent scene, doing things like Bloodsport, working with AEW, just becoming one of those top names that can do different things, whether that even be appear in Impact as part of AEW or, different things like that. He's one of those names that wherever he does end up, he will do well and he will succeed. He's in his early 40s. He still has some gas left in the tank. I think he'll do well with somebody like Bo Dallas, whether he wants to. Let's see here. Somebody says the audio is a little bit low. Let's turn that up. Is this a little bit better? Whether that is something where Bo Dallas ends up in Impact or AEW, or if he just doesn't return to wrestling and he continues to work on his farm with his girlfriend. I believe his girlfriend's Liv Morgan. So they have a farm together. So that's something that they could do together. BFG, is the audio better now? Wrestle Jake, what's up, Jake? Samoa Joe will be brilliant anywhere. I totally agree. He can go to Ring of Honor. He can go to our New Japan, Impact, anywhere. NWA, all of these folks. As far as people who might not do super loud now, let me just turn it down just a tad here. Let's see there. Maybe it's a little bit better there. As far as people, I don't want to see anybody not succeed, but there is some names there that obviously didn't make the cut while they were in WWE, and that's somebody like Wesley Blake. He really didn't do much. Obviously, during his time with NXT, he did do a little bit, but I could see him and Steve Cutler, if they can reunite and go on to somewhere like Ring of Honor, that would be great. Kalisto, excellent, hand. He's able to work. He could pop up, in another company like AEW or Impact. I just don't want to say everybody should go to AEW. There is lots of opportunities on the independent scene. Some of these folks like Kalisto do have a name there where they can make a comfortable living just, once things open up better on the independent scene, where Kalisto can work different independent appearances, do autograph signings. He is one of those names that, can draw a crowd for name value. He's still huge with the younger audiences, so that's somebody who can go on the independent scene and do well for themselves. Somebody like Mickie James making appearances. She does have that star power for many years. There's, lapsed fans who do remember her as well, who do go to, independent shows. She will do well. The Iconics, they're top names at this point as far as working from WWE, now being able to branch off and do other things. Whether or not they will remain a tag team outside of WWE, that remains to be seen. I'd love to see them return as, obviously, not, they can't use the names, but something similar to what they were doing with the Iconics, the similar style. I would love to see Billie Kay and Peyton Royce being able to cut a promo on network television in the same style that they did in the WWE. Bo Dallas, another name that, can go somewhere and still make some money, whether that be on the independent scene. So it's going to be interesting to see where some of these people land, whether or not we're going to get other releases, whether that be NXT, whether that be on the main roster, whether that be backstage. It'll be interesting to see if anybody else here. I'm just refreshing WWE here to see if they do have any other releases. It doesn't look like anybody else has been released as far as WWE. WWE did just release a press release. Let me see what that's all about. It's just about their quarterly, just some stock stuff, so nothing to do with the releases, their latest press release there. So they are going to have their upcoming shareholders meeting. So that's going to happen on May 27th. So it'll be interesting to see if anything's brought up there. Let's see here. What's going on, Keith Richardson? The audio is iconic now. Good to hear. Maybe Peyton to AEW as Sean Spears, their partner. You know what? Like, I hate to just say, just because somebody is with somebody with another company, they have to go to that company. I'd love to see them just do whatever makes them happy. What I really want to hear is some of the stories. So I'd love to hear an interview with Samoa Joe on some of these podcasts. I'd love to hear the Iconics speak. I'd love to hear Bo Dallas's story. I'd love to hear him talk about why he was just sitting at home for all those time, over a year now. I'd love to hear Mickie James' story about returning and then not really being used, and what made her go into becoming a commentator for the company. What's going on, Brian Lazaro? How you doing? You know what I don't get? Some of the wrestling fans threatening to, like Link's Guard. Obviously, some fans are taking this way too personally. Obviously, threatening harm on somebody because, somebody got released. Clearly, WWE is a business. With businesses, especially big businesses, you're not going to always agree with what they have done. And wrestling fans are passionate, especially about their, the talent. I see this as a blessing for some of these, these talents who maybe weren't getting some of the opportunities they could have gotten in WWE. So the Iconics splitting up in WWE, now being released, that might end up being a blessing in disguise where they can go somewhere back together or be separate from each other, and they can even make more money or even come back to the WWE in a few years. Somebody like Chelsea Green, same thing. Samoa Joe, I think that he's eventually going to be a WWE Hall of Famer just from him, all the years he's put in across the world, whether that be on the independent scene, whether that be in Ring of Honor, whether that be in TNA Impact, and then the WWE. He had a great run in NXT. When he first came to the WWE on the main roster, he had a great push. Unfortunately, things like injuries, his concussions, things like that did hold him back. With his commentary, I think that, he even did a great job there. He could potentially, if he didn't want to wrestle or wasn't clear to wrestle, could go somewhere else and get a great commentary gig, whether that be even outside of wrestling. He could do that and still make a really good living. BFG Podcast. Sally appears that this will be the new normal every year on this day. Tito Daz. I feel bad for Billie Kay. She's deserved better for her character work. Was great. Peyton and Chelsea Green were meh, so I don't mind. The Weller fella, why the F did they release Joe though? Saying that look at Black, Garza, Ricochet, Ali, Riddle, Keith Lee, SMH. So we also got to think here that in a business standpoint, we don't know exactly how much Samoa Joe was making, but I'm sure his paycheck was relatively good. And as far as what some of these other guys are making, maybe they're not making as much money. Obviously, we're not going to know the reason why they picked exactly some of these, like Joe. Why did they pick Miro last year? This seems like one of those other releases that is a big name that WWE just decided to release. I don't think it's going to affect their bottom line at all, but clearly somebody made the call, whether that be Vince or Vince and a few people together, that these people need to go, and Samoa Joe, unfortunately, was one of them. I can understand some of the other names that are just sitting back and catering who aren't being used, but you never know. Maybe one day we will see somebody like Buddy Murphy actually winning a title. Maybe one day Ricochet will get a push. Maybe one day, we will see Aleister Black get the push he deserves. But as of right now, I guess we're just playing the waiting game with a lot of those people who are sitting in catering. If Joe signed one of those 5-year deals, poor Samoa Joe, why didn't they release Lana? Well, I can't say I want them to release anybody really, So Spooky TV, Lana, she's an entertainer. She has a name. They're obviously want to use her for something. They didn't release hers for a reason. So we can't just speculate on why everybody was not released or was released. Tito's Daz, Joe was solid, but he's far too injury prone, is racking up in that age. He would be an excellent trainer. You know what, Tito? I do agree. He'll be an excellent trainer. He would be an excellent commentator. Whatever he wants to do, he'll be excellent at what he's done. I do agree with that. Or if he is healthy enough to get back in the ring with a schedule that isn't as heavy as WWE's schedule was before, where you're working all these house shows and you're working television, I think he will do well. Do you think Kalisto will be good in the Impact X division? I think he can have 5-star matches with Ace Austin, Rohit Raju, Chris Bay, TJP, Josh Alexander, Petey Williams, and Willie Mack. I would love to see Kalisto in the Impact X division, or even working in the independent scene. He could be one of those wrestlers who wrestles just on the weekends, works on the independent scene, makes a good living selling masks, selling autographs, working headline matches on smaller independent shows, then working on some of the bigger independent shows like like GCW or things like that, and then maybe potentially going into Impact Wrestling for per shot deals where maybe he's not signed a full agreement, but he's still able to work the indies. Wrestling Fever, DE, hey, love your news. Blessings from Germany. You're my number one source. Thank you, Wrestling Fever, and shout out to Germany. I can't believe they released Chelsea Green. Donald Music reacts. Well, considering with Chelsea Green, it looks like it's a start and stop thing with her. So, they brought her up to the main roster last year without even bringing her on television, and then she did nothing. And then they finally had something for her, and then she unfortunately got injured. So I don't know what it is with, why they just didn't decide to do anything with her. I think that she was one of those stars that made a name for herself, in Impact Wrestling, and then came to NXT, and then really didn't do much, unfortunately. I read that Black has lost all passion for wrestling. He's waiting for his contract to expire. You know what, the Weller fella? I think that Aleister Black loves wrestling, but I think he actually just wants to wrestle. That's one of those things. He's probably lost passion for sitting and catering or not being called to television or whatever the case may be. But as we did note earlier, WWE has filmed this week, according to PW Insider, some vignettes for Aleister Black. So we will see him return back to television sooner than later. And these promos were loosely based around Black's childhood. So it would be interesting to see exactly how they do bring Aleister Black back. So I'm very interested to see exactly what they do with him. I'm just refreshing WWE's announcements, and nobody else has been released, which is good. Whether or not that is the last of it, we don't know. I don't see any other noteworthy news on releases. Let me just check here. Yeah, still the same names. We can go over it one more time before I do get going. Natey, it'll be nice if you didn't spam. So we're just going to put you in timeout. Not sure why you're spamming. That's not cool. Paul Heyman, I'll believe it when I see it. Tucker Knight would be a great addition to NWA, Jake. You know what? I do agree. Tucker would be great working with NWA on the independent scene. Mojo Raleigh still has a job with WWE. He does. And to be completely honest with you, why shouldn't he have a job? He should be used. So he's one of those talents who at one point in time, he was like the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner. He had a lot to do with Rob Gronkowski coming to WWE. He's a good friend with him. So he, if they did use him, it could be good. Any idea if any of them were allowed to keep their current name? What are they allowed to change it to? So that's a good question, BFG. So when we look at some of the names here, a lot of these names are names that WWE has trademarked. So I do know that Mickie James does own her own name, so she's able to do it. WWE a few years back did actually give her name. So they initially had trademarked it, and then they actually gave it back to her. I don't see Tucker being able to use that name, since that is something WWE trademark. Samoa Joe, I believe, WWE, I want to say WWE does have a trademark on that, but let me just double check. Actually, no, Samoa Joe does have his own trademark on that. So, Samoa Joe does own the trademark on his own name, so he'll still be able to use it. Let me just see if WWE owns anything else here. So WWE does have a trademark on the Samoa Joe name, but it was expired. So Samoa Joe does have his own trademark in a number of categories. So he has on action figures, things like that. So Samoa Joe does own his name, which is good to know. So he'll be able to continue to use that name, which he's been using for years. So that's good to know. Bo Dallas is a name that WWE does own, but I'm not sure. It might have expired. I think it expired in December. It did expire in December. So whether or not WWE is going to file something against that, that's going to be interesting to see. As far as Billie Kay does go, WWE owns the name Billie Kay. Peyton Royce. WWE owns the name Peyton Royce. It is theirs. Kalisto. WWE owns the name Kalisto. So, be interesting to see Bo Dallas. It does look like WWE, for whatever reason, did let Bo Dallas's trademark expire. So I'm going to take a closer look here at the trademark database just to see exactly what happened with Bo Dallas's trademark. Okay. It'll be interesting to see. So WWE did actually re-trademark it in... this is interesting. WWE trademarked the name because the original one expired. Then they tried to trademark it again. And what they, unfortunately for them, didn't do is they didn't file some of the paperwork required. So that's something that they now need to file. One of them's a written consent from Bo Dallas himself, it looks like, which they didn't do. So this is going to be interesting, whether they're just going to let that... they had 6 months from December, so in a couple months, either WWE can just let it, abandon it, and then Bo Dallas can register it himself, or it's just going to be something WWE tries to fight to keep the name. I don't really foresee them trying to fight to keep the name. I can see them just abandoning it, and then Bo Dallas can trademark it himself, and then whether or not he wants to continue to wrestle, he can use it on the, whether that be in another company or on the independent scene, or if he just wants to not wrestle at all and just live on his farm. But the one good thing is Samoa Joe does own his trademark to his name, so he's going to be able to use that. As far as, let's look at Chelsea Green. I believe WWE did file a trademark for her name to own it. I'm not sure if that actually went through, because they were looking for signed paper from her consenting to it, and February 16th, yeah, they didn't. So they didn't get the signed consent from Chelsea Green. So they have 6 months since February, March, April, May, June, July, August. They have until August to come up with her signature saying that they can use the name Chelsea Green. And if they don't, she can register it on her own if she wants. So that'll be interesting to see. One last time, Samoa Joe, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Kalisto, Wesley Blake, and Bo Dallas, all released by WWE today. It's been a slice for everyone who's been joining me here today. WrestleJake, Chelsea Green's already selling merch under the same name. She probably is going to continue to do so. Well, WWE is yet to own the trademark. Just because they filed it doesn't mean they own it. So she can sell things under that merchandise until, unless WWE owns it. So just because they filed a trademark doesn't necessarily mean they own it yet. So they filed for it back in September. They don't own it yet. So that'll be interesting to see. I do thank everybody who did come on today, and keep it locked in, healbynature.com. Make sure to follow at healbynatureyt on Twitter. I do hope everybody does have a great Thursday, and we're just going to end the stream right now.